Welcome to Coffee with Viking. I am Mike. Cheers. We are on session 2 of Remaining Faithful in the Fire, which is called Different. We met the central character in Daniel, and we learned that with God's help, we can serve God faithfully in Babylon, and that ordinary faithfulness can have a profound impact. In this session, we'll continue through Daniel chapter 1 and see that we have to be different to make a difference. Our culture will constantly demand conformity to its desires and ways. At every turn, it will try to press us into a mold. But men of Christian character are called to break the mold, to stand out. And this goes for women too. This goes for anybody who gives their life to Christ. It's the only way we can create change. The key idea to this session, we have to be different to make a difference. So, different values. In 605 BC, God had handed Judah over to King Nebuchadnezzar, who besieged Jerusalem and took Daniel, his friends, and other Jewish nobility back to Babylon in exile. This would have been traumatic and painful for these young Jewish men. Only teenagers, they found themselves in a foreign land with foreign gods in idolatrous culture. Yet even though the culture compromised Daniel and his friends did not. Daniel saw what Babylon valued and determined to live by a different set of values. In Daniel 1:8, Daniel determined that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with his wine or with the wine he drank. And that is Daniel 1:8. Daniel 1:8, but Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested to the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now here's a question that only you can answer for yourself. What are some ways cultural values conflict with your faith? And that's something to think about. We read that Daniel did not eat from the king's table because the food did not meet the standards God set in his law. In other words, the food was unclean because of Christ. We are not held to the same dietary standards, but that doesn't mean our culture won't expect us to compromise. Babylon will always ask us to compromise in the big three: money, sex, and power. And we are battling with all of that today, all of which have become gods. Let's consider all three. Money. Babylon approaches money with the standpoint of acquisition. Get all you can, keep all you can, maybe give away a little to show you are a good person and maintain favor with the community. But money is lifeblood, the key to the good life. Because God is our trust and our treasure, believers have a different attitude toward money. Yes, we live off of money, but we also recognize that money is entrusted to us for the advancement of God's kingdom. So as God prospers us, we're not just thinking about how to advance our standard of living. We ask how we can advance our standard of giving. And another question to think about: how should Christians value money differently than any other culture? Now, sex. Babylon approaches sex from the standpoint of it's all about me. If it feels good, it can't be wrong, which is something that you hear a lot today. The Christian sees sex as a gift of God to be used for God's purpose according to his design. Within a covenant-based lifelong marriage between a man and a woman, early Christians stood in stark contrast to other Roman citizens because they were promiscuous with their money and guarded with their beds, while other Romans were guarded with their money and promiscuous with their beds. Another question, and this one goes toward the sex part. What are some ways Christians can give to our culture's attitude toward sex, even if we're not promiscuous ourselves? In power. For Babylon, press whatever power you have to your advantage. If it's your looks, use them. If it's your money, use that. If it's your talent, your majority culture status, your minority status, use it. Whatever power you have is to be held onto and pressed for advantage. But the Christians see any position of power and privilege like Jesus did, something meant to serve and lift up others. Now, I want you to think about some of the ways Jesus used his powers to benefit others, like healing the blind, raising the dead, the woman that bled for, I believe it was 7 years, touched the hem of his garment and was healed. If you can think of any more, make a list of that and think upon how he used his power and how we are supposed to use the power he gives us to help him to do his will. And this is the end of the first part of session 2. It goes into parts, and there's 3 parts to this one. We just did the different values part. Then there's integrity, which we'll get to tomorrow. And then scripture over culture is the last part. But if you can think and keep a note of this, even if it's just a mental note of ways that you can be different from this culture, but still, not compromise any or have any conflict. Just think about that and take notes and pray for those that are lost. Now, there are things when it comes to money that we will not compromise, and that is when we come to Christ, we realize our treasures are not here on this earth. Our treasures are up there awaiting us. So we don't live by greed. We just live by the daily bread God gives us. And if He causes us to gain more than what we could ever spend in our lifetime, and if He blesses us really good financially, we should use that to help others, because there are so many out there suffering. When it comes to sex, we should never compromise that. That was God's perfect design for us to multiply, to create life, and to become one with our spouses. It wasn't God's plan for us to become promiscuous. And when it comes to power, and I'm not saying everyone that is in power is evil, but most people that go into power do it just for power, not to help others. I mean, look at where our country's at right now, here in America. And just turn on the world news and see what's going on. But there are some that do have power, that actually use it for good. So what power God endows in you, you and I and all of us should use that power God gives us to help grow His kingdom, to help others find their way. We should stand out. We should be different, not trying to fit into this world, because when we come to Christ, we may be in this world, but we're not of it. We are of a different world. And we are just passing through here, trying to help others find the truth. Stay blessed. Stay caffeinated. And may you all have a wonderful day. Much love.